We'll start because we have to go to the actual symposium itself. I'd like to first of all thank everybody who's here, and particularly thank the Noor Foundation and the United Nations, the NGO section of the United Nations, as well as the University of Montreal for organizing this symposium and allowing us to introduce our very exciting study, the AWARE study that I'll be talking about very briefly this morning, as well as the Human Consciousness Project of the School of Medicine of the University of Southampton in the UK. I'm going to start off by talking briefly about the AWARE study and then lead on to talking about the Human Consciousness Project, which is just being launched now, as well as going on to talk about some of the studies that we have in development together with AWARE itself. I am a fellow at Weill Cornell Medical Center in Pulmonary and Critical Care Medicine, as well as a Senior Research Fellow at the University of Southampton's School of Medicine and Division of Neuroscience. I'd like to start off by giving a brief introduction to the study. I think an area that most of us have been touched upon and have thought about at some point in our lives is what happens when we die. And although this has traditionally been perceived to be a subject for philosophy and theology, recent advances in science have really allowed us the ability to conduct scientific research and to answer this, one of the biggest questions for all of humankind, through scientific and objective means. Now, from a medical point of view, we define death as no heartbeat, no activity of the lungs, no breathing, and a brain that is no longer functioning. And as you may have seen, in hospitals we typically will shine a light in the eyes, and we look to see that there is no pupillary response, there's no response from the eyes, which means that the brainstem and the brain itself has stopped functioning. And of course that makes sense, because when the heart stops beating, there's no blood flowing into the brain and all the organs, and they cease functioning at that point, which is when we call somebody dead. However, although 50 or 100 years ago, when somebody reached that point, there was very little chance that they could be brought back to life, advances in science, and particularly resuscitation medicine, have allowed us to bring a proportion of people back to life, and therefore it allows us an understanding of what happens when people go through clinical death. A key point that I'd like to also raise at this point is that, contrary to common perceptions, death is not a moment. Death is really a process that begins when we stop breathing, when the heart stops functioning and the brain shuts down. And in the initial phase, at least, it is potentially reversible, because